I'd like to also introduce you to the next speaker, which is Kah Seng. I know Kah Seng personally, again, for many years. And Kah Seng, I know him personally, and therefore, every single speaker that I bring on, there's always a message to share with everyone. He is a great storyteller, by the way. So I just want to say that he's going to be covering, what can you say if no one asks you about your work values? I think you know the answer by now, but I'm going to pass the floor to Kah Seng to share his journey with us, because I know he's got a lot to share with you. Very interesting story. Before we move on to the last speaker, who's going to talk a lot about social media and how that's going to help you. Kah Seng, can't wait. Over to you. Can you share?
Yeah, wait, let me share my screen.
Very good. Okay,
Right, can you see my screen?
Yeah. Don't forget nt.com, enter your questions there, so that I saw one question there. I have the answer to that one, but let's go through all the speeches first. Yeah, thanks.
Right. Thank you, Eileen, and thank you, Samia. I think you are right when you say that you find it hard to believe that you joined the SAF FC. I think most Singaporeans, males who had to serve, but some do it very, very happily. I mean, I enjoyed my time in the army. Actually, one of the best times I have in my life is actually in the army, but kind of hard to believe that people will kind of put aside, time, away from their career in order to to go and join. So good to know. Right. Yeah, we want to talk about work values, right? How important they are, and really, right? Do they actually matter in the workplace, right? We are not HR professionals, right? We don't think about these kind of things very often. Most of the time it's like, hey, performance is all that matter, right? I'm a hard worker, I'm an achiever and stuff like that. You talk about things like that, but really, work values, and then especially when I saw earlier, the poll, right? A large number of us put the integrity, right, as one of the higher, more work values, right? Come on, is that integrity worth any money? Right? Okay, now I don't want to be a judge on that, right? I mean, I just want to kind of provoke you with that kind of question. I'm not here to preach, here basically just to exchange ideas, share with you my personal journey, my own thoughts, right? And see if you agree or disagree. Yeah. But first of all, right? So I just want to qualify, right, that when you talk about work values, Eileen showed us, the different kind of frameworks, the 6 basic values, for example. One thing that struck me was this political thing, right? Power and influence, right? And, immediately my thought was like, hey, it's not something all of us can handle, right? Some people go after them, some people don't, right? Just like when I used to teach my children, right? At the time when they used to listen to me anyway, now they don't, yeah? But at the time when they used to listen to me, right, I used to tell them that, you talk about a lot of things about leadership in school, people, leadership and all that, but just get it clear, right? Leadership is not for everybody. Some people want to become leaders, some people just don't, right? Because with, to be a leader, right, it comes with other than heavy responsibilities and all sorts of things. It's like you're the kind who have to always think about the way forward, right? Where to go, move left, move right, right? Some people are just not cut out for that. Some people don't want to do that, right? Among other things. Anyway, so I think the power thing kind of shocked me because it's that, hey, that is not something that I go after, right? Personally, right? Anyway, so when we talk about values, despite all the definitions and stuff like that, I would like to kind of define it a bit more broadly. I don't want to kind of restrict it to those goody stuff, right? The virtuous stuff, like things like honesty, purity, faithfulness, loyalty, kind of thing. All these are good to have, right? But let's be practical, okay? While these values are great, right? But these are not the only definition of values, right? one of the things we really want to talk about is how really, right? How do your values match with that of the company? Because after all, what you want to do is when you work for a company, you want to be comfortable in there, you want to be happy in there, right? Take for example, we read a lot of news today, right? Investment news articles, for example, about companies selling cannabis, right? Now, would you be comfortable working in a company that sells cannabis as a salesperson, or as a marketer, right? Or even as a product manager, right? How do I make my cannabis more addictive, right? I don't know, right? I mean, well, I don't want to go into the judgment kind of a thing, but basically, I would like to say work values as more general than those that are of a virtuous nature, right? We basically just want to talk about values, things that are kind of important to you, yeah? So you're going to listen to me for the next 30 minutes. So I think I owe it to you to introduce a little bit about myself. I work for a couple of companies. I think I counted like 5 different companies that I work for, plus minus. Yeah, these are the major ones, right? Most of the companies, the first company I worked for like 3 months, right? And after that, I decided to move, and most of the other companies that I work for, I work between 2 to 3 years, right? Motorola is the company that I kind of practically spent almost all the rest of my career in, right? In total, it's about 20 plus years already, right? I had held different kind of roles. I will not read them, but fair to say that half of them are in the so-called customer-facing roles, right? The other half is more back-end, right? Well, I just now Samir said, people tend to view a back office not so so-called glamorously. Yes, I think that is true. You don't have a lot of excitement there, but and I kind of miss the excitement, right, that I used to have when I was in the customer-facing roles. But it's a kind of a different kind of so-called life that you have to deal with, right? Look for the good things, right? The valuable things that you do. There are still things that you can be enthusiastic about. So, for example, as a product manager, I may not be doing the selling, but if I come up with a product that sells very well, right? That is really satisfying. Yeah. And I was, I worked for Philips actually in 2 jobs, right? I was retrenched from one job, and then I joined another part of the Philips company, and I worked for Motorola 3 times. So actually, I was retrenched from Motorola twice, right? Well, most people would find it amazing already if you work for a company a second time after being retrenched, right? I think I make probably career history or Guinness Book of World Records or whatever, right? By going back to the company at the 3rd time, right? Now, obviously there are reasons why I go back to the company time and again, right? Even after being retrenched twice, right? And I would like to think that there are also really good reasons why the company, right, would hire me back after retrenching me twice, right? Well, I don't know. I've never really asked my boss or whatever why they hire me again, because I'm just happy to be hired. But one of the things that I would like to think, right, is that hey, I've got strong work ethics, right? Well, talking about work ethics, right? Today we're dealing with COVID-19, right? Most of us are forced to work from home, whether we like it or not, right? And you might have read in the newspapers or seen adverts or whatever of companies who are selling so-called employee monitoring software, right? So that they can kind of monitor what the employees are doing, right? What kind of screens they are looking at, how often are they, browsing the internet and stuff like that, right? Now, there's the COVID-19 days, but I kind of started working from home, right? Since more than 10 years ago, right? And I've been doing so since then. I would like to think that I'm actually able to do this not only because of the nature of my job, but because my bosses, right, trust that, right, I've got strong work ethics and that I'll get things done, right? Now, together with work ethics also, right, I get to very, very used to flexi hours, right? Because I deal with Europe, I deal with the United States, so I stay late into the night having calls and stuff like that. So I'm very used to flexi hours. So today, if you ask me if I can go back to a regular office hour job, right, working from let's say 8 to 5 and all this, I think no, I can't do that anymore. So this flexi hour thing has become one of the things that I value. It has become a work value to me, right? And as an example of some of the other values, that have affected, my choice of careers, right? Again, to illustrate that not all values are necessarily all the goody stuff, right? I'd like to give a couple of examples, right? The first example is, a couple of years ago, after leaving Motorola, I wanted to go into the training world, right? I have enjoyed talking to people since a young age. In the army, I did a lot of public speaking. I like to give presentations. I find I have a knack for training. So I thought that, hey, this would be a good world to enter, right? So I took up this actor training. Now, one of the modules of this course is a module on ethics, right? Where they actually teach you on all the so-called different methods, right, or different philosophies or different guides, right, on how to handle ethical issues. And the reason why there is actually a specific module is, as a trainer, right, you can expect to come across a lot of ethical issues, right? Things like, for example, if you have students who don't turn up for your classes or who don't pay attention in class and that sort of thing, do you still pass him, right? I mean, the morally ethical answer would be no, right? But think about it from the practical side. If you don't pass him, word will get around that, hey, this instructor very niao one, don't take his course, right? Go to some other school, go and choose other instructor, right? That kind of thing. So these are the kind of issues, right? And some of the examples that were highlighted by the trainers, right? And I was like, when I was taking this course, I was like started having second thoughts. But I thought that, hey, maybe I would be able to handle it, right? But so unfortunately for me, or maybe God kind of just made it this way, right? On the last day of my actor training, right, I came across an incident, which I shall not go into here, right? But I kind of came across an incident that left a very, very bad taste in me, right? And that got me thinking that, hey, when I used to work for Motorola, right, I hardly have to, I hardly come across, issues, that challenge my ethics, right? And I, and having had led that kind of life for so many years, I don't think I'm, able now, right, to suddenly jump into a world where, I'm a kind of my ethical beliefs, right, are being questioned every single day, right? And maybe a little bit about praise for the company, right? The Motorola has got a very, very strong ethics program, right? They make you go through refresher courses every year. They give you lots of examples of so-called gray situations, right? And then, and see how you handle those situations. And of course, their ethics hotline, whistleblower hotlines, etc., etc. So in a sense, you can be quite sure that if, you work for a company and you make a decision, right? Any decision you make based on ethics, right? You won't go wrong, right? Or you will not be faulted, you will not be pressured to make a decision. Now, that's not to say, of course, that there are no bad apples in the baskets. There will always be, but the thing is that, if you decide to stick to your ethics, ethical values and all that, right? You don't get undue pressure. Right, so that's the kind of the contrast that I found, and I decided that, hey, maybe I'm not ready yet to go into that world, right? Now, as an example, another example, I love massage. And since a young boy, I've been massaging for my dad, and because I love massage and because I used to massage for my dad, I've kind of acquired a skill, and I think I'm pretty good at massage, right? People who I massage for, like my wife or whatever, right? I mean, they said, hey, I massage well. So, and one of the things that I thought of doing is to, hey, go into a massage business, yeah? But I don't want to just own the business, right? If I go into this line, I want to do the massaging myself, right?
Yeah, we want to ask ask you. I was about to ask you, but you answer my question in my mind. To be a
Yeah,
master or to own a business, but
yeah.
you just
I want to do both, right? I want to do both, right? But then, somebody said that, yeah, but you are a graduate, you have a university degree, you have a master's degree, what will your friends think if they see you massaging for people and all that, right? Now that kind of shook my so-called belief, right? Now, in this sense, again, it's my value system, right? I mean, in Chinese, there is a phrase that like to say 职业不分贵贱, right? I like to believe that, right? Or I thought I believed that, but when it comes, where the rubber hits the road, I find that look, I am not ready, right? I am not ready to do that. Maybe I still do that. I don't know, right? My wife has started attending massage courses herself now. I don't know for what reason. So maybe one day I will go into that as well, right? Now, as a third example, I once get this job offer, right, which I turned down, right? And the reason I turned it down is because when I went for the interview and all that, and I found that, hey, everybody I see are of a particular nationality, right? And I just don't feel comfortable, right? I don't belong to that nationality, right? And I just don't feel comfortable, right, working in a company which is predominantly of that certain nationality. Well, you can call it biasness, you can call it fear of discrimination or whatever. I just feel that, look, it's going to be very, very difficult for me to fit in. So I decided not to, right? So just a couple of examples of so-called values at play that has influenced my decision. Oh, by the way, this disclaimer, please read it, right? All information presented and shared are my own views, right? My personal views. They do not represent any of the companies mentioned, right? Whatever I present based on my perspective shall not be interpreted as facts, right?
yes.
Okay.
Thanks for sharing. Yeah, you just reminded, all our lunches, you always have so many interesting stories. So guys, excuse Kah Seng, because he's very, very candid. He'll just share with you his thoughts, his raw thoughts, but he really meant no harm. All right. Yeah. So cool. Sorry. Oh, okay.
Okay, so just to kind of illustrate this a bit more, this value thing, right? Differing values, right? Let me give you a scenario, right? The scenario is a private company. This is a private company, right? And the MD of this company, right, runs the regional operations, right? He is the so-called number one in this region, right? Because the real owner doesn't reside here, right? He's a foreigner, right? So you can say in Chinese terms, he can 一手遮天, right? He basically, one of the things that he does is that he approves his own expenses, right? Including his personal expenses, right? Now, whether the owner actually knows this or not and does not care, or whether the owner does not know, nobody knows, right? This person, right, this finance person who is kind of working for this company, right, didn't feel that it's very, very right, right? Because the finance person also has to, approve and also has to kind of, make entries into the books, right? And you've got to classify, whether it is a personal expense or whatever kind of thing, right? And the MD basically just said that, look, just trust me, right? I can approve, right? And my personal trips and all this, no worries. The owner approves, right? This finance person is very, very uncomfortable with that situation, right? And the finance person doesn't think that this is the right thing, right? My question to you, right, to the audience is, do you approve of the MD's actions? Do you think he can approve his own personal expenses, including those of personal holidays or, okay, let's say quite non-business trips? All right. Can we have the poll, Eileen?
Yep, I just launched the poll. So will be good to hear what the audience think, right? Do you approve of the MD's actions? If you're the finance manager. Yeah, let's see. Wow. You can see the audience reaction. Not everybody can see everybody's reaction yet, but what about the rest? Okay, we've got certainly more than 2/3 of you have responded. There's still another 30% have not responded. So what do you think, right? What do you think? Approve or not? So it is really a question of personal ethics. I think we keep hearing, I mean, this is like a slightly different case, right? Like for myself, I've come across situation, same situation, Kah Seng, you know, you heard me talk about this, right? Where I had to exactly right task a student that never made the grade, never showed up for classes, you know, clearly the assignment that was sent in, it was atrocious. I said, not my name there. I mean, I cannot be passing you. But then exactly right, the institution came back and say, but we want their business. So no, yeah, I got myself out of it. Yeah, so it really clearly reminded that. Okay, so why don't I share?
Yeah.
Let me share the results. Yay!
So with the majority of audience, right, earlier, name integrity, right, as one of the most important work values, I have to say that I'm actually not at all surprised, right, with these results. Okay, now let me go on to the next story, right? Okay, same scenario, private company, right? In this case, the MD again also kind of 一手遮天 kind of thing, right? He's embezzling money, right? And one day, the son of the owner, right, decided to do an audit. And after he did the audit, he ran to the owner and told the owner, you know what? This guy has been embezzling money from the company to the tune of about $50,000 a year, right? And expecting that the owner would be very, very angry and would kind of fire this guy, right? But instead, the owner kind of laughed it off, right? The owner said, well, you know what? When I was interviewing this guy, I was actually in my mind was prepared to pay him about $300,000 a year, right? But he only asked for 200,000, so I actually hired him for only 200,000. And if he takes only 50K a year, it means I only pay him about 250K. So look at it, we actually save $50,000 a year, right? And as long as he's continue to make money for us, just let him be, right? Now, this is not a true story. Huh? This story, I heard it from, I saw on TikTok videos on right? One of those channels where, they try to impart so-called a business wisdom kind of thing, right? And I thought this is actually quite interesting. And I heard it about the same time where my friend was, narrating the previous story, right? And by the way, the previous story is a true situation, a true occurrence, right? This one is a TikTok story, right? And I kind of shared this story with my friend, right? In the hope of basically trying to give my friend a different perspective, right? Now, let me ask you now, right? If you were the owner, would you fire the MD?
Yep. Wow. I don't have to read the poll. They have started responding. Will you fire? Will you not fire? Or not sure, not sure, not sure, not sure. Okay. So what will you do? Okay. In this case, I would say very interesting way of explaining things though. Right? Very interesting way of explaining things. It's almost like somebody coming into your office saying that took your stapler without asking, right? And then you come back to the office and you realize, hey, your stapler not there anymore. And then you realize your stapler is there, someone's desk, and the person say, I'm just borrowing it. I only forget to tell you. So how? Very interesting. Okay. Shall we end the poll?
Yeah.
All right. I'm gonna end the poll and then show what the majority says. Very interesting. Here we go. Ta-da!
Okay. Can you see your own poll? Very interesting result. So apparently, despite me telling you this story, it didn't change your mind, right? You still hold on to your belief about integrity and a sense of right and wrong, right? Which is good, right? I respect your opinion. Yeah.
Yep, exactly. Okay, I've stopped share.
Okay, so now let's move on. So a couple more examples, right? There is this employment contract, right? Which actually, this is a real one, right? This is a real one, right? A friend of mine was actually working for this company, and after working for this company for some time, they somehow decided to rewrite their employment contract. And the employment contract says this is kind of almost verbatim, okay? The employee agrees and undertakes to devote the whole of his or her time and attention to the business and the employer to the best of his or her skills and abilities.
Right.
The whole of his or her time and attention, right, to the best of his or her skills and abilities. Right. Now, this friend of mine who is kind of was working for this company was already not so happy with the company, or not so happy there. And when he saw this employment contract, it was a last straw for him, right? So he decided to quit. Right. Now, I will not go into the detail here. If we have time, we can discuss this later on during the Q&A or whatever, right? Right and wrong, why, or whatever, right? Second scenario is like similar to the job offer that I turned out, right? You go to a company and you found that, hey, this company is predominantly of one nationality or sex, right? Or race or age, right? And you just happen to not belong to that category. Will you join that company? Right? What if you are not in that victim category, right? What if it's a very young company with a lot of young people, and you happen to be a young person as well? Would you still join this company? That means you're no longer the victim, right? You're part of the majority. Would you join this company? Okay, I'm not looking for answers, but just things to get you thinking, right? As we talked about earlier, right, with this COVID-19 work from home phenomena, more and more people are working from home. So there are more and more apps, right, or applications, right, that allows companies to monitor what the employees are doing, right, when they are remote. How would you feel, right? Would you feel comfortable being monitored? Would you want to work for companies, right, who that are monitoring you, right? Now, as a last example, right, let's compare two companies, right? One company that chases after every opportunity that comes its way, versus a company that is very, very selective about the companies about the opportunities that they chose, right? So let me give you my experience here, right? I used to work for Motorola. I told you I worked for many, many years in Motorola, and Motorola, obviously, there are always more opportunities and more projects than we have resources to handle, right? So the company has to be very, very selective, right? And in fact, has come up with a pretty robust processes, right? To make sure that we carefully evaluate opportunities and projects, right, before we pump in resources, right? So it's very, very selective, right? So there are times where I would say that it's more often than not, right, that we turn down opportunities, or we turn down projects, decide not to do them because we just have better things to do, right? Now compare that, right? And so I was brought up by Motorola, right, in that way, right? Kind of worked for Motorola for 10 years, right? Already brainwashed already before I kind of left Motorola, to work for other companies, right? And one of the other companies that I came to work for was ST Electronics. And ST Electronics has very, very different thinking, right? ST Electronics kind of chases after every opportunities that comes, right? And in fact, when I went over to the company, it was a culture shock to me, right? Culture shock to me, and I actually found myself, right, basically trying to kill a project, right? I worked very, very hard, right? One of the projects that I managed, right, I worked very hard, but not to chase after the project. I worked very, very hard to kill the project, right? To try to persuade my managers, right, that is not worth going, that is a waste of resources and all this sort of thing, and not to pursue that, right? Now that was the real scenario, right? Of course, as time passed, as years passed, and I grow in age and wisdom and experience, I actually realized that, hey, ST Electronics is also not wrong. Okay, it's just the orientation is different, right? In Motorola, because they have a lot of opportunities, right? So they more opportunities than the available resources. They just have to prioritize their resources, right? In ST is actually, or at least that branch that I work for, is a system integration, majority system integration, right? And you really have to build your capabilities, right? And how do you build capabilities? You don't build capabilities just sitting around. You build capabilities only when you have real projects to work on, right? And so the whole idea behind that is that, hey, you want to develop the capabilities of the company and of the people, right, in various fields and all this. And that's why, ST chase a lot of different projects, right? Until the project is dead, right? You don't give up. That's the kind of mentality over there, right? So I think I'll end this slide here with a couple of last questions, which I think probably by now they should be self-explanatory, or rather they should explain themselves, right? Are work values universal, right? Do they apply to all jobs, right? Does the same value apply to all jobs, right? Or does it apply to all companies, right? I hope you will agree with me by now that no, it depends on the jobs that you are in. It also depends on the company that you work for, right? Here, let me give you another example, right? There was a sales manager that worked for the company, one of the companies that I work for, right? And this sales manager is always finding ways, right, to work around things, right? To work around rules and establish procedures and give a lot of so-called us old-timers a lot of heartache, right? Because we are brought up to follow the rules and the procedures, and this guy is always, navigating his way around, right? And it's always, giving us challenges, right? So from our perspective, hey, this is not a very good guy, right? But actually, right, think about it. Why does the company hire a guy like that, right? Now, of course, the big boss is never going to explain to me, right? But among us, we talk about it, and they say, hey, one of the strengths that he has, right, is that this guy is not somebody who is brought up by the company, right, to follow the rules and establish procedures for the type of business that he is managing, right, for the type of challenges that he has to find new ways. He has to navigate through the nooks and cracks and whatever, right, to find ways, for the business to grow, right? So I think, basically what I want to try to say here is that different circumstances, different situations, right, would require people of different kind of values or different attitudes, right? Now, this next slide, I will not kind of go into detail. You can see a lot of words there. It's just meant for you to read now or read later. I don't mean to go into the detail, but I just want to throw some ideas, right, of what employees may look for, right, when they want to work for a company, right? For example, some of the obvious ones are, I want to work in a place where there's no discrimination, judge me by my work, not by the color of my skin, for example, right? I want to work in a place where there's trust, the boss trusts me, I trust my boss, everybody happy, right? I want to work in a place that is inclusive, right? I'm 50 over years old, right? I don't want to work in a company where, people start to question, hey, we are a fast moving company, can you move fast enough or not, right? That kind of thing, right? Or work for a company that pays on time, right? To people who have got money, maybe that's not a big deal, right? A couple of days late or whatever, but for people who are, working and with the money from hand to mouth every month thing, the company paying on time is a very, very big deal, right? And just now I think we talked about work-life balance, right? Samuel talked about work-life balance, right? And the thing is, is work-life balance important to you, right? Probably if you are still young and single, less of an issue, but once you start to have a family, maybe more of an issue, right? Then you want to look for a company that, hey, who really, really believes that, right? And I would like to say that, hey, one of the reasons why I'm so comfortable working for Motorola is that Motorola really believe in that, right? Now we work hard, right? All of us work hard, right? And even my American bosses work hard, right? They work over the weekends, right? On Monday morning, my time, I see email from him, so I know he's working on Sunday night, right? So he's working hard, right? But Having said that, right, we also know that the company, values, and promotes work-life balance. Why we don't know that? Take for example, right, we have calls, right, late night calls, practically quite often, and so for some people, practically the every week of the day, right? So my boss kind of set a rule that, hey, no calls on Thursday, right? Thursdays, leave it free for your family, right? No meetings on Thursdays. Friday is a given, right? Friday is the end of the week, right? If you hold any meeting, nobody will attend anyway, right? And then there are a lot of so-called non-work activities that are being kind of promoted, right? For example, just yesterday, right, we had a kind of a lunch program where we are taught how to make our own terrarium, right? So by the way, here.
Oh my gosh, he's gonna reach out for his terrarium.
So I just made this yesterday, right?
He's really enthusiastic. Oh my gosh. Oh,
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and ultimately, right? I mean, why do the values matter to employees, right? Ultimately, bottom line is that we want to be treated fairly. We want to feel secure. We want to feel a sense of belonging. We want to feel happy, right? And we want to make sure that we can succeed in that company, right?
Yeah.
Now, so that's for the employee. What employees may look for, right?
This is
I guess
your last flight, right, Kah Seng?
almost my last.
Almost. Well, better hurry,
Okay. Yeah. So again, I won't go into detail here, right? But again, I think just some pointers to jot your ideas, to get your brain juice going, right? I'm sure you can come up with ideas of your own, right? So let me just dwell on two, right? Competitive, right? So not every job requires somebody who is competitive, but if you are a sales guy, especially if you belong to that hunter category, right? Companies will look for people who are competitive, people who are aggressive, right? As compared to more back office jobs, for example.
Right.
Or if the company is hiring, right, a manager, they want to hire people who will make time for people, right? Who will not just work, but people who will take care of their employees, take them out to lunch, or get to know the employees, on a one-to-one basis kind of thing, right? Because that's how you promote the team spirits and productivity and stuff like that. Yeah. Okay, my last slide. Okay. So we basically, I just want to draw the conclusion, right? That my view, right, is that work values need not necessarily be, those of a virtuous nature, but they are things that are related to work. Okay, and that it is best that you know what your values are, and I think Elaine gave a kind of a framework, right, for us to evaluate our values and then evaluate those of the companies and see whether we match, right? If yours and the company's values match, right, then you can have a good and long and happy career at the company, right? Now, various ways, right? I think the next speaker is going to talk about social media, and mind you, right, lots of people will talk about, will probably look at your social media profile, right, to evaluate you as a person, right? And okay, and there are other things, right, including sending in your applications, right, your application letter, how you send it, how you frame them to your interviews as well, right? Whether you are punctual, whether you show respect for people, whether you dress appropriately, right? Including some very minor things like putting your phone to silence, at the interview. And maybe, one of the things you can think about is do it, kind of very, very obviously, right? Reach the interview, then put your phone to silent and put it in front of you or put it at the side, right? So that it's very, very visible, right? And of course, don't forget about your tones, emotions, your facial expressions, right? Especially when you're narrating, right, a story, right, or narrating an event, narrating certain people. Imagine if you are talking about the event and your face is frowning, what kind of message you will be sending across, right? That, oh, that must have been a very unhappy experience for you, right? And lastly, take the PR approach, right? For those who are familiar with the PR professionals, right? Or if you watch Kellyanne Conway on the US TV, right? You will see that these people are really very good, right? They have certain messages in their mind, and no matter what questions you ask, right, they will eventually come back to the messages, right? They are always on message. You can ask questions from any category, right? But they keep coming back to the message They're very, very on message, right? So I think when you go for interviews, right, you can also bear that in mind, right? What are the messages that you want to send, and make use of all opportunities, right? And actually, if you look at the typical interview questions that are out there, a lot of them actually gives you a lot of opening, right? Actually, I learned this from one of the courses that Eileen, asked me to go attend previously, right? Things that I never thought about, right?
Yes.
Questions previously that, tell me about yourself. I said, wow, first of all, tell me about myself. From when? From the time I'm born, or to my middle age, my teenagers, or what, right? But really, that's not what they're interested in, right? This is really an opportunity, right, for you to put your message across, right? What are some of your strong points, right? What would others say about you, right? All these are really opportunities, right, for you to get your message through, right? So I think
very animated. The more he talk, the more animated he is. You see, he's moving away from the computer.
Okay, I'm done.
Okay.
Thanks, Eileen.
Thank you so much, Kah Seng.